Thank you, Karen, for leading us into one of the topics which is, I guess, on a numbers of people's minds this year. This is healthcare, and this is how healthcare can actually work in a digital world. As Karen said, I am the managing partner of Wellington Partners. We are a Munich-based but globally investing venture firm, investing broadly in anything that can change healthcare. So it changes people's lives that are faced with a disease, practitioners, and also is fit for payers. We come from the real world, so we've been mainly investing in tangible products, be that drugs, medical devices, or diagnostics, and have expanded also in the digital world, as our companies had to do by investments in Definiens, Ambos, Cohen, Sidekick. And I'm extremely pleased to discuss how the digital revolution will actually change the field of therapeutics and what we actually mean by digital therapeutics, digital drugs, and what the future holds for them. And for that, I'm actually here joined by panelists that have been all fellow investors, all have been investing in the field in different areas, and all are really looking forward to expanding their investments in that growing area. And I would really like to introduce you guys to the audience by yourselves in the order of experience on my screen. So that would be Baudouin first.
Hello, everybody. This is Baudouin. I'm a partner at Karista. Karista is a Paris-based venture capital firm established for 20 years now. And we must say that we love the field of digital therapeutics because we've been investing in the European pioneer in the field, a company called Wellington that my colleagues invested in 2006 and that we carried over up to a Euronext exit in 2018. So that was probably a bit before the market happened, but a wealth of experience from that firm. And now we have a brand new fund investing precisely on this topic. So I'll be very, very happy to share thoughts on this new trend.
Thank you for joining us. And next on my screen is Janke, also a pioneer in digital investments in Europe.
My name is Janke Dittmer. I'm a general partner with Gilde Healthcare. We are a transatlantic venture and growth capital fund with close to 2 billion under management. I'm responsible for health tech in Europe and have made almost 10 years ago now the first digital health investments on behalf of Gilde. We're very active in the digital therapeutics domain, but more to that later.
And sitting in the digital health capital of Europe, we have Markus Müschenich.
Yes, Markus Müschenich. I'm from Eternity.Health, managing partner of Eternity.Health, which is a life science technology holding. And beside other companies, we have a venture capital fund, which is called Heal Capital. And the LPs are the private healthcare insurance companies in Germany. So we have not only a fund, but also best way to get into the market for our investments. And we have also a company called Ababax, which is a digital drug company. So we develop and bring digital drugs to the market. Maybe we come to this later.
Thank you very much. And I think this brings us actually to the topic of the session. And it is actually probably a wider topic than actually just the title suggests with digital therapeutics, because I think what we've seen over the last year is that an industry that has been inherently reluctant to embrace the digital revolutions on the healthcare side has, by the COVID crisis, actually found itself in a completely new universe where all of a sudden a number of things that were perceived to not be possible, especially, for example, in a country as conservative as Germany, with regards to telemedicine, with regards to delivering services online on the healthcare side, but has also really opened the floodgates on saying, what can we actually do with the data that is there on the healthcare side? Can we actually make use of that to not only manage patients better, but actually treat patients better? And with that, actually, what I wanted to do is, first of all, ask each of you, what does digital therapeutics actually mean for you? And how does this feature in kind of your thinking about investments and things that really change also the return profiles for your funds? So if you had to give to the investor audience out there just a definition of what are digital therapeutics for Karista, or what is digital health, how would you answer that?
So digital health would be a wider trend where we see that healthcare late absorbing industry when it comes to digital changes. So we see that doctors are still the only professional using faxes, to share information, and this is telling a lot on the amount of barriers to be overcome to modernize this critical industry. So, digital health altogether is how we can actually use these technologies to better take care of patients, usually at a lower cost. Okay, and within that spectrum, digital therapeutics would be specific, in my mind, my own definition would be specific medical products using an actual software, that could be an app as well, to bring a clinical benefit, always keeping this risk to benefit ratio on a positive side. Okay, so that would be my definition, and that can come across a lot of different kind of specialties, different types of patients, even healthy people can benefit from those products.
Fair enough. Markus, I think one of the things that Baudouin just said probably resonates to you if I actually think of our previous discussions, that a digital therapeutic probably has a therapeutic index. So what's your feeling on the definition of a digital therapeutic, and how do we actually differentiate digital therapeutics from digital wellness?
So digital therapeutics, let's say for me, it's okay what Baudouin said, but for me, it's something what we call in Germany a Leibarzt, which means a personal doctor, which is, let's say, has the same knowledge and the same experience on special diseases. And so it's some kind of a personal doctor being 24/7 on duty for you. And in Germany, these digital therapeutics are now reimbursed by all healthcare insurance companies. So as you already mentioned, Germany was, let's say, in the stone age of digital health until a couple of years, and now we have very interesting digital health acts which allow the healthcare insurance companies to reimburse digital therapeutics. And for me, I think it's a complete new way of healthcare. So now we had the doctors, the doctors had the monopole of treating patients, but now we see that, and that refers to your data point, we have digital therapeutics which know much more about the patients than the doctor ever knows. Take M-Sense, it's a digital therapeutic against migraine. It's a migraine personal doctor, and the patient documents all his migraine attacks and documents everything, and M-Sense matches this to environmental factors, and so you have a tool which treats migraine, which prevents migraine, because you know when you are at risk to suffer from a migraine attack. So it's better than a usual doctor using data and having and providing access 24/7.
That's actually an interesting concept, because in the end, with the company and the application you're describing on the migraine side, you're actually also solving for one of the points is actually how do you deliver the digital therapeutic to patients. And Janke, we had a discussion about where are the boundaries of what is a digital therapeutic, and does it actually have to be a prescription drug? So how is your investment thesis evolving around that?
Well, as a broad investor across healthcare and for the last 20 years, we actually take a technology agnostic approach. So for us, it's really all about the patient and the patient's needs. And just like with any medtech innovation or biotech innovation, it's all about good evidence. And there's no difference in what a digital therapeutics needs to deliver versus these other modalities. And we basically see what for every disease or condition is the best to treat the disease, to manage the disease, or to improve a health function. And it could be prevention of impending serious disease. And I think that's really important that, digital right now is a theme, it's a hot theme. I think talking about digital will go away. We will not talk about digital health anymore in 5 years. We will just talk about healthcare and effective solutions and those that are less effective. The good thing about digital interventions is that they generally have a very low level of side effects. So they have a very good therapeutic window if you look at it that way. And but traditionally by pharma, they've been often looked at as companions to what they do, as companion apps. And I think the whole idea of apps has been probably a disservice to the digital therapeutics fields, as in the end, if you think about the low side effects, why would you not start with the digital therapeutics before you throw a biochemical compound into your body or your patient's body, and see what happens? So if you look at step therapy, so you first start with a therapy that does no harm and could potentially do a lot of good. And in the process, we found out that actually many digital therapeutics are as effective as in-person interventions or medical device or biotech interventions. So if we're doing
if I may just interject here, you said we found out that they were equally effective or even more effective. Are you referring then to randomized controlled trials, or what is the evidence that it would take to substantiate such a claim?
So like in Big Health, which is a company that I'm serving on the board of, and they're providing a digital therapeutic solution for mental health conditions, including clinical insomnia and anxiety, depression. There we've done 13 randomized controlled trials with over 10,000 patients in total. I think many pharma companies would be quite jealous of that sort of history. And we can show that it's at least non-inferior to in-person therapy. And there's some suggestion that it's actually better. And in many cases, I think access is the key differentiator. So if you look at, you got the same or better outcomes, but therapists are not available in the middle of the night when you're suffering from insomnia. So it's kind of irrelevant. What's important is that you have access to the therapy, both physically and then ultimately also in terms of reimbursement, that it's affordable. And this is with Big Health the case via employers.
Mm. Yeah, the only question is, do you really want to narrow the field down to digital interventions of sorts that are developed like a conventional drug? I mean, we've seen conventional drugs being approved by Lilly in less than a year from inceptions during a COVID crisis. But usually we know that the developments in especially some more chronic diseases, even with a benign side effect profile, can rather take decades. So question is, do we have to go all that route, or are there actually ways where you can actually use the digital platform, as you said, given the benign side effect profile? And this is something that features strongly in our own investment thesis with companies like Sidekick and Koa that provide platforms where patients basically from the day one of a diagnosis will have a support system around them, and that can actually be used without having to go through an approval process of a 10-year as a starting point, but then have to come through that. Would be interesting to see also Baudouin with Voluntis, who was one of the people that came first. How much do you need to follow the trodden pharma route, or is there actually something in between that is already meaningful?
In the case of Voluntis, that was really the first of a kind. So we had to build the sufficient medical evidence for the doctors to trust this type of disruptive solution. And this, I think, will remain for those disease-transforming digital solutions that we will be investing. Okay, when it comes to bringing an impact which is as strong as changing the standard prescription for a disease, we need to prove, and that's even an ethical point, we need to prove that we don't miss the chances for patients. Okay, and as always, you need to compare with the existing standard of care, and you need to have reliable data, trials that are robust before you can actually shift the medical practice to a new standard.
Right.
But then there are different types of solutions, or different types of digital therapeutics. We just invested in a company. It's not yet disclosed, but it's about how we can revisit the actual physical therapy, and we usually face the struggle of finding a therapist, moving the therapist to the home of patients, and it's not always effective. It's not standardized. So there are as well some notions of operational improvements to be made. Mm-hmm. And so we've found this company which operates on both angles. First, it brings a clinical benefit that has been proven, and it got them the reimbursement in their home country. And second, we also realized that this is a major operational improvement, and well, even more relevant in a COVID situation where you want to avoid people circulating and physical therapists going from one home to the other. And well, I think it's important to outline that this can also be this sort of solutions, which is in fact winning on both factors.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've opted for a lot of standalone solutions. I want to come back to Janke, but before I do that, Markus, what I found interesting is, because I want to come on to the business model next, but before we do, some of your interventions, they actually rely on kind of being a combi product with a device and with a digital solution. And why I would like to go there and have you explain a little bit how that works is, Janke, I want to bring this back to the notion of who's the companion here in the future? Because Baudouin said we're going on top of standard of care. Standard of care usually for most of the indications that at least Voluntis is after is drugs. Standard of care could also be a device, and we come to that in a moment with Markus. And I would just like to see how that plays out, the kind of balance of power between the suppliers of something tangible and something intangible going forward. So, but Markus, would be great, I think, for the audience to hear what you've been working on the convergence between the device field and the
so we are invested in digital therapeutic, but we are heading for, let's say, the next evolutionary stage, because the digital therapeutics, it's a cognitive behavioral therapy or physiotherapy, which is provided online in your home, and you don't have to go to the doctor. That's perfect. But what's not perfect is that you still have to work on it. It's still exhausting. It's a lot of effort. So you don't have to visit your psychotherapist, but you have to do the same lessons and the same effort as if you, let's say, sit in front of a psychotherapist. What we aim for, and that's why we call it digital drugs, is that we want to have the same effect like a drug, a molecule-based drug. And so give me one example. If you want to fall in sleep and you suffer from insomnia and you can't sleep, you have, let's say, two alternatives. On the one hand, you run 10 kilometers, then you are tired, you take a sleeping pill. What do most of the patients like? They want to swallow a sleeping pill. So we develop digital drugs as the alternative to a sleeping pill and not to a 10-kilometer walk. That means bringing something to the market which is completely effortless. We brought our first digital drug in 2014 into the market. It was against a children's disease called amblyopia, vision loss disease. And the children just had to play a game, it doesn't matter what game, and behind the game there were special visual patterns which run from the screen through the retina into the brain, into the visual cortex. And the children, they did not mention how it worked. So it worked like a pill, but no molecules. I think if we talk about digital therapeutics, we have to ask, what do the patients like? And of course, the patients like what's less effortful. And now digital therapeutics are less effortful because you can have it at home. But the next step will be, let's say, brain stimulation or nervous stimulation, which will have an effect on depression, anxiety, and on other things. We even work on a technology which enhances the answer to a vaccination, which improves vaccination answer by let's say opening special brain circuits which let's say work on the immune system. So it's very interesting, but it's the next step. Mm-hmm. So, but today we're happy that we have the digital therapeutics because that's a big step away from looking for a doctor, getting an appointment, and then having the effort to go to the doctor.
Absolutely, the service component is also important. But what I wanted to really pick up is also what you described about the eye application, because in the end, a stimulus through the optical nerve is nothing new. And the question is then really where the value lies. Does it lie in the way how you stimulate, in the way how the app learns to help these children and other indications that you want to know? Or does it really lie kind of in the physical apparatus? And I think, Janke, with that, I wanted to bring it back because I think it is a really important discussion that will lead us into the business model. So if we actually think back about biomarkers in the early 2000s, at that time, everybody was saying there won't be a drug on the market that will not have a biomarker, i.e. there will always have to be a way to identify the right patient for the right therapy. And while this has actually proven to be true, the value has been staying with the drug companies. So how are we going to fare on the digital side?
So we've invested in 2012 in Definiens with the thesis that you don't need a companion diagnostics, but what you want is to turn pharma into companion pharma. So you basically figure out that the patient has cancer using AI. You figure out what pathways are active, and you figure out what exact combinations of compounds would cure this patient. And then the pharma becomes a commodity that's a companion to the test, the digital cancer diagnostic test that we developed at the time with Definiens, and which was finally acquired by AstraZeneca, and until this date is still kind of one of the largest digital health exits in Europe. And Wellington was on the cap table with us. So that's the model, and I think for digital therapeutics we need to think about it the same way. You know, drugs, for example, especially in mental health, and you talked about sleeping pills, insomnia, have a terrible track record when it comes to efficacy and safety. So the FDA has black box warnings on sleeping pills and on also mental health drugs that are in the top 10 drugs prescribed. So rather than saying we do something that increases the efficacy of these drugs, what we should do is basically pick up everyone. We do that, for example, with CVS in the US, the pharmacy benefit manager. If somebody wants to take a prescription of a drug, you should send them an SMS link for digital therapeutics and say, please try this first. And if this cures you, we spare you the addiction and the side effects of taking drugs. So we're turning the pharma part into a commodity potentially, or the next step in the chain, because some pharma compounds have very strong value add, but usually with a very different risk benefit calculation. And I think there is also a place for a companion app when it's about patient-reported outcomes for a cancer drug, where you can actually improve mortality more than adding another drug to that patient. But I think digital therapeutics also have the chance to generate value and pharma-like value on a standalone basis.
Isn't it interesting that in the end, Definiens was picked up by a pharma company? Maybe even as a defensive move to say, ooh, this could be getting too close to home. Maybe this is actually going to be something that actually could take away some of our thunder. Maybe that is actually a nice segue into what are we actually hoping for our digital health companies. So, of course, we've seen a public market where, especially when it goes to business models towards insurers in the US, tremendous value can apparently create it. Probably that also tells us that there is tremendous still potential for rationalization in the 75% of the healthcare costs which are not associated with current drugs or devices or tangible therapeutics going forward. But actually, how can we now make sure that this potential that is within those apps, the better lifestyle, the higher safety, the higher efficiency, the general side effects that go, as Janke was just describing, beyond kind of all of the side effects that pills may have, also with regards to addiction and things like that, all of the things that we can think about, they should actually have blockbuster potential. But how can we actually turn our companies that right now, whether we want it or not, are either ending up in a consumer box or they are ending up serving pharma clients usually? How can we actually make sure that we'll get them to this blockbuster stage? Anybody wants to venture on a rather open question?
Yeah, I think that's a completely new standalone category. And we are really at the beginning of this new era. We mentioned pharma products, medical devices, and digital therapeutics is indeed a standalone new category. As you just said, the level of prices of breakthrough devices or breakthrough drugs is usually rather high, and it can be justified by health economic studies. It has to be justified by health economic studies before you can actually claim reimbursement. And I don't see it different for digital therapeutics or digital health products at large.
So we need breakthrough designation for apps that are really changing people's lives.
Well, breakthrough designation is a specific FDA term, but there can be this term applying to digital therapeutics. The point is a new solution has to be proven on a clinical standpoint. It has to be proven on a health economic standpoint before it can actually be worth what is.
But let's assume we have that, because I think if you look at some of the data that Voluntis has published, at least on the metabolic side, let's assume that there is data. And now, with regards to kind of really bringing this to the business model and reimbursement side.
Yeah.
So if we want to capture a fair share for those companies of their contribution to actually making sure that people with a disease are getting better, how can we actually do that? And I know there's a reason why, Baudouin, I want to stay with you for a second, is that France also has pioneered some of the solutions there. So maybe you can help us to shed a bit of light what's actually happening in your home market there.
So being reimbursed is not the only ingredient. Okay, it's also important to be able to reach some level of scale. Okay, and how you can actually get to scale with such product. Well, first, those are software products, so they should be basically interestingly scalable, okay? Or they have to, at least, to be of interest for us. And second, you need to have a decent level of adoption by the healthcare professionals and by the patients in order to scale. And this is where my prior concept of bringing clinical benefits as well as operational improvement is key to me, because you are expecting some changes in the habits of people, okay? And the only way, or one of the way at least, is to bring some benefit. And as soon as this is used, people realize that this is a much easier experience than the conventional way, and they adopt it. And once this is adopted, well, it stays.
Sounds like a long journey.
Well, it really depends, but those products are software products, therefore high margin. They can be very sticky products. You never go away. So
okay, fair enough. Let's park that for a moment. I still want to get back to reimbursement in France at the moment, but Janke, we want to make money in all of this. So what I'm hearing from Baudouin is this is going to be same old like drug development. We need data. This is going to take time, and then once it's good, people will actually realize and they'll prescribe it and they will take it. No, Baudouin, that's not all you said, but this is certainly a component of it, and this is kind of in the most narrow definition of digital therapeutics. That's probably the case. But would that then mean, Janke, that we end up with like a winner takes it all situation? Somebody is going to create the best data, and this is going to be the app that everybody has to use? Or would you actually say that there can be different kind of business models and different winners in different type of subcategories for each of the indication? What's your feeling?
I mean, this is a really disruptive approach to therapeutics. And one of the options here is actually to disregard this traditional path of development. And I think clinical trials, if you have a good safety, you can skip phase 1, right? And you can combine phase 2 and 3 without losing the rigor. And you can run trials with tens of thousands of people in a matter of months at a fraction of the cost of pharma. So that on the evidence basis, I don't think it has to be limiting. And on the reimbursement side, I think if we go through the traditional pathway of basically getting a drug to regulatory approval, then lobbying the prescribers and the payers to prescribe and reimburse it, this will be a small industry because the willingness to pay inherently for a product with 90-100% margins will always be much lower than for a drug. And there's some reasons behind it, even if the value can be the same. So I think let's turn it around and say the superpower of digital therapeutics is the scalability. Why do you need prescription for drugs? Well, because they're dangerous, right? If they get into the wrong hands, you can poison people, you get side effects. Do you really need prescription for digital therapeutics? If their safety profile is completely clean, there's actually no reason to go via the prescription route. And you will have to go for a pharma sales force type of approach, which brings you 20-30% overheads, which is completely outdated. Even pharma is kind of going away from those, because who wants to visit all the general practitioners? And which general practitioners actually wants to see a sales rep from a pharma company, but also from a digital therapeutics company? So I think that's kind of fishing behind the net. We need to go to the patient, to the consumer of healthcare products, and pick them up where they are today, and then ex post find ways to pay from those people who have a benefit, whether it be the traditional payers or be it the employers. And this is what we do with Big Health as well.
Okay, good. And since this is a SuperReturn Europe, I really would like to bring that back, what we can in Europe do with the scalability of such solutions. And I really like the way how you both profiled that. I think and actually all three of you, there is data already showing that digital therapeutics have a place and that they have a very benign safety profile, that they are easy to scale. Now we need to get them to the people that actually need them going forward. And as I said, we at Wellington have voted at our feet there to invest in platforms that really engage people with diseases very early on in a very all-encompassing way, with platforms like Sidekick that are a companion to people that have the misfortune that they need to take better care of their health, that can not only be done with healthy lifestyle, but can be augmented with that. And I think that goes a little bit also towards the thinking of the German government. And I want to bring that back a little bit still to reimbursement and what's actually good about Europe. And would like to place that back to Markus. Have you guys actually been able to benefit from the initiatives of the German government allowing reimbursement before you have all the clinical proof of concept, saying we need such solutions and we want to promote them?
Yes, the Act in Germany says that you don't have to finish all your trials. You have to reach a special level, and then you have you're allowed to bring it for 1 year into the market, and then you have to deliver the rest of the trials. So from I think 10 digital therapeutic applications in Germany which are reimbursed, I think 6 or 7 are on the track that within 1 year they have to deliver the rest of the trial data. And if you see what market power is behind this, yesterday I read a number which was very impressive, that the 10 digital therapeutics address a market of 40 billion euros. And also, so that means it's a huge accepted market. And if you want to bring a digital therapeutic into the European market, you have to start in Germany, because if you get the market access to Germany, then you're ready for Europe. And how to get into the market? Okay, that's a case where we have to have a, let's say, perfect sales strategy, or you partner with a pharma company. If you take, for example, Servier, which has licensed Deprexis as a depression tool, and Servier builds an own sales force only for digital therapeutics. So it's the only pharma company I know who decided to go on digital, not as it's part of the Salesforce thing, but just with an own Salesforce. So starting Germany is perfect, the market is perfect, and let's say the prices you can achieve, it's very good at the moment, and we'll see in 1 year, because after 1 year the price is renegotiated, and then we'll see if the high price level will be there after 1 year. But we hope like that. But go or come to Germany. That's perfect.
Excellent. And this is also great because we are down to the last minute of our panel. Time has really gone fast. And I hope that everybody who's listened has already got the feeling that this is really an area that is going to shape medicine and the way how we deliver medicine to people that need it going forward. And we have hopefully also left you with the impression that this is a field where the sky is the limit, and the scalability and the sheer opportunity of actually delivering effective therapy that is safe is offering opportunities that go well beyond what we have seen to date. But before we end, I just wanted to also give Baudouin you the chance to maybe say one last sentence that you want to leave our audience with on the digital strategy that you guys are having for your new fund.
It's a new category again, and our job as venture capitalists is to try and seek new paths to creating value, and I think that's very
okay. And
thank you very much, everybody. I'm sorry, Regina, we have to wrap up here at this point.